So it's about 6 p.m. On Tuesday, July 29th. The Senate is currently voting on the nomination of Donald Trump's former criminal attorney, Emil Bove, to be a federal appellate judge, I think in New York's Third Circuit. And in the nominating process for a judge like this, what typically happens is when it is in committee, the Senate's Judiciary Committee, which I think is headed up by 947-year-old Chuck Grassley from Iowa, I believe. There have been 3 whistleblowers come out with incredibly detailed reports about Emil Bove and his conduct as the number 3 attorney at the Department of Justice over the last 6 or 7 months. Egregious misconduct on his part. And I want to split something out here. If you just look at his resume on paper, he is qualified for this position. He's been an attorney for a very long time. He's tried cases. I think he's a former prosecutor for the DOJ. Now he's the number 3 judge at the DOJ. He has the qualifications for the position. Now, when people graduate from law school and they apply to take the bar exam in whatever state that they're in, you have to apply to take the test. You have to meet all the requirements to take the test. You have to take the test. You have to pass the test. You also have to fill out and submit a separate application. It's called a moral character application, because you don't have to just demonstrate to the state bar that you can pass the bar exam and be qualified to practice law. You have to demonstrate that you have the moral character to be a practicing attorney. And like when I took the Ohio bar, they wanted to know everything about my background going back to when I was 18 years old. Cool, fine, easy, piece of cake. I never got arrested after I turned 18. When I took the bar exam in California, they wanted to know everything about my background going back to when I was 14. Yeah. So my moral character application for the Ohio bar exam was about that thick. My moral character application for the California bar exam was about that thick. Because I got into a lot of trouble between the ages of 14 and 18. All that stuff was when I was a minor. They don't care that it was when I was a minor. You have to submit everything. And then they do an investigation. And so if they find something that you did not include, the starting point, the presumption on their part was that you hid that on purpose. And that causes problems. And that can be a very, very hard hole to dig out of. And I'm reminded of another guy that I knew, unimaginably smart individual, who had been, I believe, a surgeon in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, but lost his license to practice medicine. There had been a couple of mysterious patient deaths on his watch. There had been an incident involving a high-speed chase and some stolen prescription drugs. And so after the fallout of that, he decided that he was going to go to law school out here in California. He got into one of the best law schools in the entire country. Graduated near the absolute top of his class. Obviously qualified to take the bar exam. Had to submit a moral character application. And they said no. And that was that. He did not get to become an attorney in the state of California. And I think he went back east and somehow got his license reinstated and has been practicing medicine. Emil Bove, these three whistleblowers have demonstrated a course of conduct of his moral character that show that he is completely lacking in the necessary moral character to be a federal court appellate judge. He instructed subordinates to tell federal trial court judges to fuck off when they didn't like that judge's particular rulings. He told subordinates to ignore the rulings of federal trial courts. Egregious stuff. I mean egregious. And it demonstrates conclusively that he does not have the judgment or the character to serve as a federal appellate court judge. Under normal circumstances, the Judiciary Committee would have called those three whistleblowers as witnesses, and senators from both sides would have had the opportunity to question those people. Chuck Grassley didn't call any of those whistleblowers. Donald Trump wants this guy, Donald Trump gets this guy. And there was a very dramatic scene last week or the week before when Democrats walked out of that committee hearing, the final vote where Republicans voted after having called none of these whistleblowers to testify about the character of Emil Bove, the judicial temperament of Emil Bove. And none of the reporting on any of this has had any impact on Republicans in the Senate. I will be stunned if they do not confirm him to this position. And this brings me back to something that I spoke about last week. Donald Trump's policies are unpopular enough that it has put the Senate, control of the Senate, back in play for Democrats in the 2026 midterm elections. 6 months ago, it was a laydown that Republicans were going to maintain control of the Senate. And now it's not a laydown. It's realistically in play that Democrats could retake control of the Senate in November of 2026. I think that Donald Trump wants Emil Bove on the Supreme Court strongly. I think that as we get closer to Election Day in 2026, I'm thinking next spring, early summer, if it starts to look like there's at least a 50% chance that Democrats are going to take the Senate, or if it leans in their favor, that unimaginable amounts of pressure are going to be applied to Supreme Court Justices Alito and Thomas to get them to retire, so that Donald Trump will get 2 more picks on the Supreme Court before Election Day 2026. I believe that one of those will be Emil Bove. I think there's an even chance that the other one will be Aileen Cannon from Florida. Because Donald Trump is fucking fed up and done with the Federalist Society because they gave him Amy Coney Barrett. So I think he's done with Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society when it comes to picking judges. And I think he's going to go off of his own instincts. And what are his own instincts? Loyalty. And who has been more loyal to him on the federal bench than Aileen Cannon? And so that's my own private little nightmare scenario. But I think that's what's going to happen. So apologies for shitting on everybody's Tuesday afternoon. But Trump will have 5 of the 9 Supreme Court justices if this actually happens. He will have picked more than half the court. And that's the ball game